Meeting order, Oromocto Town Council in committee meeting Tuesday, the 20th of August, 2000. And what is it, 24 now? I'll ask for recording and I'll call for a mover for approval of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Mahoney, seconder. Council Von Richter, questions? All in favor? Contrary, motion carried. We'll move it down to our presentation. Tonight we have the Ginger Agency with us. The tagline invisible identity of the town of Oromocto. We got Aaron Hatfield and Sandra Bellinger. So the floor is yours, ladies.
Yeah, thank you. Sarah, I'm Aaron. Yes. I'm the Vice President of Content Communications at the Ginger Agency. Your Honor, Councilors, thank you for having us back again. So what you'll see today is the evolution of the work that we've done since we presented the brand positioning to all of you. So that consists of, as the mayor stated, the brand architecture. So our recommendation on what the architecture of the town of Oromocto's kind of brand makeup should be, as well as some pretty interesting, I think, compelling visual identity suggestions for all of you to mull over. So with that, our agenda today, I am controlling this, I guess. Yes, okay. So our agenda today, as I stated, we're going to get into a little bit about the brand architecture recommendation. We've developed a few taglines. You see that came out of our work with the focus groups, as well as all of the kind of stakeholder engagement and the competitive analysis, SWOT analysis that we did. We come up with actually 2 tagline options for your consideration and 3 visual identity options. And then we'll make a little bit of time for questions, as I'm sure you do, and I hope you have them for us. So brand architecture. A brand architecture takes into consideration a number of strategic considerations that come out as part of the focus groups, as part of our work and analyzing and kind of make up a reality of what's going on in Oromocto. So you will have heard in the last presentation that it really is cumulative in nature, and we take into account in beyond the brand positioning work, which you would have heard of. We take into account all of that stakeholder engagement. We take into account the alignment that comes out of the stakeholder engagement. We take into consideration the existing brands that you have in Oromocto. By brands, I mean you have a fire department, you have a public works. Those are the sub brands within Oromocto. We take into consideration finances. It's a reality. It's like, what is a house of brands versus a branded house of cost? We do take into consideration the positioning, as well as the flexibility and control that a branded house versus a house of brands might have. And by that, we're wanting to balance the need for consistency so that it becomes a recognizable entity within the town. So in terms of types of brand architecture, there are endorsed brands. This would be where the brands each have their own identity, but they're supported by a well-known parent brand. An example of that would be Marriott. It's got Crown Plaza and stuff under it. We have a house of brands where the brands within a company or an organization have their own multiple brands that operate independently. So Unilever, they have Dove, they have Lipton Teas, they're are completely disjointed. That's known as a house of brands. The third kind of brand architecture that we took into consideration would be a hybrid of this, but where we settle for Oromocto is a branded house. So a branded house is when all the brands within the organization, within the town, share the same name, they share the same values as the main brand. So they have the same look and feel, and they work together as one big team so that we're building up that recognition, we're building up that reputation. Why do we recommend a branded house that maintains that single focus and maintains consistency? It reinforces the brand recognition that you're going to want out in the environment, as well as it fosters a loyalty. You'll see, the idea is that people put it on their sweatshirts and their t-shirts and things like that as they walk around in the world. It reduces the confusion when you have that kind of dilution of brand equity, and then it reduces also the financial. If you're thinking about having a different kind of visual identity for each of your sub-brands, it's going to cost a little bit more. So of course, with municipalities, we take that into consideration. So for the town of Oromocto, a branded house would see that the visual identity would carry over from the fire services to recreation and tourism to finance. All of these sub-brands would have the same kind of branded house look and feel. When we are evaluating the effectiveness of this for your town, we look at other municipalities. Of course, we looked at some interesting ones like Helsinki, which we're not showing you here today, but we did choose to just show you Fredericton. It is a very local and real kind of representation for you as you're thinking about what a branded house looks like. That is what Fredericton has. Fredericton has a branded house. So we just threw this up here for you to see how the press usage for the fire and the police force works with the visual identity that Fredericton has, as well as Fredericton has a high presence of iconography, which you'll see reflected in what we've done with Oromocto's visual identities. And then the visuals, of course, are when we get into those last few points, it's talking about like the number of colors that you have, as well as the kind of aesthetic approach that supports the brand visual identity, which is real people, it's more elements like that. So we did look at Fredericton as an example, as well as we looked at Wisconsin, and we looked at Helsinki when we made the larger presentation to your colleagues. So as we move through the visual identities, which Sarah will take over for me when we do that, but you'll see that we rely a lot on the use of a word mark. So using a word mark within a city logo can really help streamline that branding process. So it creates that strong and consistent visual identity and provides the practical benefits of supporting that long-term recognition and engagement. So it provides clarity and simplicity. It provides supposed to be memorable, timeless, and again emphasizes that word recognition. And it's complementary to existing symbol elements that you have in your ecosystem, the town. So you will see that come out in the visual identities, the use of a word mark. Again, I bring that up at this point because Fredericton uses word marks. It's giving you kind of that association of what the word mark would be. Okay, so taglines. We did, during the focus group, it was very apparent that the current tagline for the town of Oromocto does not resonate with the vast majority of your residents. There was a few very vocal and lovers of model town, but the vast majority, in particular your residents and your business stakeholders, do not relate to it. So to that end, Ginger Agency did spend some time conceiving of some taglines for your consideration that we believe are a true reflection of all of the information that we would have learned during the focus group sessions. So I will present those here. I will talk through a little bit about the rationale behind each of the taglines. And then, as I said, I'll hand it to Sarah to talk about the exciting part, which is the visual identity. So our tagline, the first tagline that we have to present to you is more than rivers connect us. The rationale behind more than rivers connect us is that it highlights that town's unique geographical feature where rivers meet people, where it emphasizes the true connections within the community. That's something we heard over and over again, was that, if I can't get my kid at soccer, my neighbor will get him. There's this like very strong affection for the connectivity of the community and the neighborlyhood, the kind of neighborly nature of Oromocto. So with More Than Rivers Connect Us, the idea is really that community goes beyond physical proximity. It reflects the social bonds. It reflects shared experience. It reflects the military heritage and that deep connection sense of unity. We do feel that More Than Rivers Connect Us is, it works on a lot of different levels. It's like almost open to interpretation of in the eye of the beholder kind of thing. So it has, applications that we feel like each individual can, draw on and then make for themselves. It also has a nice musicality to it. That mirrors the town's name, with specifically that hard C in Oromocto and the hard C in Connect. So it will be a memorable kind of tagline, I believe. It connects to the brand strategy because it aligns with the strategic pillars that you would have seen the last time we presented. And it really focuses on the natural beauty, which was a truth that came out in our positioning work. It reinforces the idea that the town's strengths, in relationships. And there's also an emotional resonance. The tagline evokes a sense of belonging and interconnectivity, and it taps into emotions that are associated with that community spirit. So that's our first tagline. And then we'd like to give you an option. You will see in the visual identities, our preference comes out. It is More Than Rivers Connect Us, because it is on the visual identities that's an easy fix, depending on where everyone lands. But you will see that the More Than Rivers Connect Us was our strong preference. The second option that we came up with for Oromocto is Tradition Tomorrow Together. Again, we're that musicality, the alliteration that happens within the T's, the hard T's and the hard C's. We like to play around with the kind of like musicality and our wordsmithing. But the rationale and the context for Tradition Tomorrow Together succinctly captures like the essence of Oromocto. It highlights its commitment to honoring the heritage while actively embracing and shaping the future. So this one has that kind of stronger nod to that future-facing sentiment that came out in the focus groups. The tagline acknowledges the town's strong foundation. It acknowledges the roots in the military history, in the Indigenous history, and its ongoing efforts to kind of foster the connection to the brand strategy and the brand positioning work that we did. Is that it really does align strongly with that proud military heritage truth that came out, as well as that dynamic growth and innovation that came out in the positioning work. And then for the emotional resonance, it's really about senses of community and connects deeply with the community's appreciation for its past and its excitement for the future. Those would be our, I didn't even use my notes, look at that. Those are the taglines, and then like I said, this is the fun part where Sarah will walk you through the visual identities, and then we'll take any questions or folks.
Great, thank you, Erin. Excited to walk through our 3 concepts today. The first concept we are calling Flow Connect. As the name states, it's really capturing the essence of connection within the community, flow within the community, and all of that is inspired by the natural movement of water. The design that you're going to see today is really symbolizing the town's commitment to fostering a stronger, interconnected community. And again, we talk about where relationships and collaborations flow seamlessly. So we are literally talking about flow, and then also talking about the community connections and how that flows. You're going to see that the letter M is something that we played around with. It's going to have fluid lines that again is representing that flow. Show you what that looks like on the next slide. So Town of Oromocto flow concept here. The letter M, as you can see, that is meant to be fluid lines. We have a very vibrant color palette that we feel reflects Oromocto's drive for dynamic growth, for innovation, knowing that we're constantly evolving and progressing, but staying true to our roots. You can also see that the M, pretty centered in the middle of the word, that's also meant to be a point of connection. So that M is that connection. I'm going to show you a couple more visuals on, again, number 1, the flow concept. Here, as Erin mentioned, we have with the tagline that we recommended, just to show you how this can be used in different elements. Here is another mock-up that we have. Here, we really used the O. It's very simple, very powerful, we feel. Again, we think it represents people, it represents community, it represents that. So different ways that we can. And then lastly, we have some mock-ups here. I'll note these are stock images. Of course, we would be updating these with real ones, but just to show you how we can use this with different use cases, different colors, for example, different images. Okay, going to move to our second concept that we are calling Nature Active. So this one is really, it's a logo. It's highlighting the natural beauty, the active living. That's a big insight that we learned or heard a lot from the focus group. You're going to see in the color palette and the logo design, it's inspired by lush green spaces, winding rivers, scenic trails, all of those outdoor things and active lifestyle that we again heard from our research. So here we have concept 2, We feel this one is a very organic approach. So this we would call logo. You've got the image at the top and then the town of Oromocto underneath it. We like this one because it also gives us the opportunity to play with shapes. I'm going to show you that on the slides. So again, here we have it with the tagline that we recommended, but again, these are swapped out, but just to show you how we can play with shapes. We've kind of pulled apart the logo. You have the sun in one corner, sort of the grass or flow in the other corner. Just another example here, again, being very playful with the shapes. We're also exploring positive and negative space with different colors. And then lastly, showing you how this looks with stock imagery. We really like the one on the far right where the resident, you know, is right in the middle of it. That really brings that connection. All right, and then it takes us to our last concept that we are calling proud pulse. So this one is very embodying pride, strong community relationships, it's rich heritage, it's vibrant, it's very dynamic word mark that I will say, and it is the most corporate of the three that we feel. Very modern, very corporate, representing a town that's united, ever evolving, dynamic. Those are all inspiration for this concept. So here we've got 3, proud pulse. So again, the most modern of the 3. Here we're using typography. It feels very timeless. It feels very simple. It feels very modern. What I would love to draw attention to is in the O. That's meant to be interconnected shape. So think of 2 hands connecting. That's what it's meant to represent. It can also be rivers flowing. So there's some interpretation there. But that hands united, we really feel like it's a strong, powerful message. Also feels very innovative, very future facing. These are all inspiration for this concept. So here we've got a couple images, again with the tagline, just showing you as well, you remove the O and have that as a standalone type of image there. You can pull apart that O. Next slide, again, you can see how we're pulling out that interconnectedness that we chatted about. Yeah, playing around with the space around it. And then lastly, we've got some stock image mock-ups and just showing you different ways that we can play around the word mark with the O. Okay, so I've got a couple more slides before we wrap up for questions. We thought this would be a great takeaway slide here. You can see the 3 side by side. I know it's you probably want to compare them as you think about your feedback. So here you've got the 3. And then lastly, we did want to showcase the fire services crest. We are not recommending going away from that crest. We know how important that is. So we just wanted to showcase to you how we would keep that branded house approach that Aaron just spoke about, but incorporate the crest as well. So you can see in the 2 different concepts how we would bring the crest to life. Just a close-up of those crests, so you can see again, it would be a consistent look and feel with the other departments' brands, as we say, but we would still incorporate the crest. And that takes us to the end of our presentation. So Aaron and I are here if you have any questions that you want to chat through. I know we had time clock, I'm not sure where we're at, but
5 minutes, we stayed trying to get about 5 minutes, sir. You were very easy on us last.
Council, the questions are open for anyone with a question or comment. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just trying to understand the process. I understand you have focus groups. They would have, I'm assuming, informed you as to how they identify with Oromocto, what they see in Oromocto, and so on. So the 2 options of More Than Rivers Connect Us and then the other one, are they taglines that you created based on the input you received? It is, okay, so that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, it takes into account every word, so we went through word mapping where we said, tell us words that you think of Oromocto, and colors and everything that you saw draws entirely from all of that research. work.
And am I correct, so right now when people say the town of 4 Oaks,
Yes.
is that what you would consider to be our current tagline, or is it the motto?
Well,
Okay, fine. And then, sorry if I can keep going, I'm trying to connect this in my head. So. I'm just trying to picture not people who are really involved in the community, but the average citizen. Are they going to come up with and remember more than rivers connect us? Because whenever you were going over your presentation, you used it in the descriptor where rivers and people meet. I thought that's catchy. I like that thing.
Well, you have that.
That is our-
That's important.
I like,
And so that's why we made this not, it's that was very intentional, that we felt like when we did explain it.
that connecting to our current.
Yeah, it's not too far of a departure that it would be jarring, because we do know well with municipalities, there is always like a flurry of opinion around this kind of thing, so you don't want to go too far too fast. So that was
Okay.
why I thought it was. very
So that's
interesting
the,
there. Yeah.
that's the connection to it.
But
Okay.
good for like picking up on it.
Yeah, and you know, when you get down to your themes and so on, I'm not a fan of the funny looking M. I think the average person would go, why is the M off?
Yeah.
I do like the simplicity of the second one. I think it does tie in well, especially to the natural beauty that surrounds us. I do only wonder, and this is just my wonder, I don't know if this would have come up in your focus groups, I wonder what people. Cause I'm assuming if you're gonna use the one that's if you're bringing in nature, that they're gonna be more like greens and so on, but. Also like water tends to be blue, so I'm kind of wondering like, was there any talk about like the concept number 2, but in the blue tone? Or if this is your recommendation, is it the greens and the yellows? You know what I'm trying to get at?
I absolutely do, and I would like, it's intriguing, so you're saying swap the green of Oromocto, which I will say in the focus group, the greens and blues were the biggest. But people that were talking about green were more connected to military, and then the people that were less connected to military were not super in favor.
I guess I'm not really saying anything, I'm just questioning it. I'm
Yes.
just questioning
So
whether
you're
or
saying,
not,
yeah, like what if?
like concept 2, but more with the blue, especially when you're talking about trying to make a transition for change
Yeah.
and so on, because I think, unless I'm wrong, yeah, so if you look at our current flag, it's it's blues and it's all about the river and so
Yeah.
on, but
And it's the same blue, like the code, the hex code of it, is the same, exact same blue in the third concept. But you're
exactly.
saying, would you like to see concept 2 with the blue instead of the green, which absolutely worked because our art directors actually said that green bottom portion of the logo mark at the top could be rivers. She said it could be a hill, it could be a field, it could be a river.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if that is the ask of, in terms of feedback, we would lock that out as.
I think it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'll stop now because I'm sure they all have something that they want to say. Thank you.
Anyway, okay, Councilor Murdoch?
Yeah, I guess my instinct was the blue because what we have. Yes, to your point, you mentioned that when you sway too far away from what people know, sometimes you lose. And I have to admit, when I started looking through it and saw the green and yellows. Yeah, only because we used to see in the blue as a brown color for the town. So yeah, I'd be interested to see, because I, like my colleague, I love the symbol. But I do like the blue version too, simplicity and the symbol of the old too, so they kind of both. I like both ideas of them. I guess I get that if I had to move to, when I look at the blue, I guess that resonates with me.
Yeah.
But, and going forward, I think the change would be subtle. But I guess if you're gonna do a change, sometimes doing different colors may be the way to do it, but I do, I love the symbol of the blue one too. I love it. And to your point with the green and the yellow, you know, to your point, for your focus group, that was the color picture for one color. group and then not the other, well, oddly enough, the joining of the hands is kind of a different concept. Good work, guys, and I love how you describe how you talk about it. What a very cool industry you're in.
Yeah.
I very, very intriguing.
I will say that working on municipal work is probably our favorite. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really is because people care so much about the community.
Right.
And we really get to the point.
Yeah, that's good, and the focus groups must have been fun.
A lot of really great information and a lot of very engaged residents. It was a very dynamic
Very cool.
experience and super diverse.
It's good to hear, that's good to hear.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you. I kind of along the same line that when I look at it, I think the blue looks sharp, it looks future leaning, but it looks more business to me.
Mhm.
The logo in the middle, the color scheme in the middle looks more bedroom, community, family.
Relax.
So to me, it's like we have to decide, what do we see us moving toward?
Yeah, that's.
Are we looking to target business and not saying that obviously residents wouldn't, the blue is fantastic. I love the shades of the blue. I really like the blues on pretty much everything. It's on the logos, fire service, everything looks nice. Would look good, I think, on a truck, like on the doors of the truck. I also like the logo on the other one. Again, it is a departure from the blue, but one I feel is a business approach, one is a resident approach, right? The concept street would look really great on municipal trucks, on the buildings, on the shirts. On your trying to attract businesses, or business cards go out. The other one looks really nice when you're moved to Oromocto, set up shop, right? We have starts, we have school, we have, so it just depends on what, to somewhat, me, I think blending the colors is interesting as well, but. What are we looking to move toward? Because traditionally, we were largely military. We are going to continue to be, that's just the nature of our town. Forgive me for saying, but they're going to be here regardless. You know, when somebody's posted here, they will be here,
Yeah.
right? This is where, now, they don't necessarily live in Oromocto, they may buy in Frederick, they may buy in Maryland, wherever they wanna buy. Different than it was 50 years ago, for sure. So are we looking to target them? Are we looking to target the people who aren't going to be put here, maybe not necessarily by choice? So that's something that I think we need to consider as well.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you. It does, fantastic. I think they all look
Mhm.
good. So that,
Thank you, worship. Nice job. When I first looked at this, I thought, ooh, when I looked at it again and I saw more than Rivers Connect Us, it's the blue that jumps out at me.
Mm.
So I like the town of Oromocto, the one, but I don't know about the dog print. That's the first thing I thought. It's a dog.
the middle.
Oh, yeah.
And Cindy, because you said.
No. No. And I thought,
Now I can't see it.
Yeah. I like the flow of the O in the town of Oromocto. Continuing movement, you said, and enjoying whether it's hands, everybody will interpret what they want to interpret, no matter what. So, I agree with Councilor Carr, it's what we want to identify. I just think that it's the richness of the color blue that I like. Not necessarily whether it's green because of vegetation or yellow because of the sun or because that we can do within our own department. I'm not a fan of that O with the C's, kind of abstract to me, but when I see it in, you had another one joining it, oh, the blue, town of Oromocto with it incorporated up in the corner, this one.
Oh,
I liked it
Yeah,
better
yeah.
because it isn't as bold, it doesn't go.
yeah, okay.
I definitely would be favoring away from people pictures. And more into, like, more than Rivers Connect Us or water or something. Even though we're not totally that, we're not totally military either. Our town has grown. Yes, they probably were military when they came here. It's grown because they chose to come here and they'll always get the military closer, but there's a lot of civilians that live here as well. Yeah. So anyway, well done. Other than that, yeah, I like the number of varieties that you put together to show what it could look like this one I really too. Because it's clean. I like
Yeah.
clean.
Yeah, and you have to think about like highways, like you're driving by
Yeah,
and
you
you're
want something that's
kilometers an hour, and you want something that lands with folks, yeah, which is always the challenge with municipal.
Thank you.
Councilor Richard?
Thank you, your worship. Great work, by the way. Lots of payout with all three of them. How many folks were in the focus groups altogether?
There was 4 focus groups and there was more than there is here. So this times 4, and probably not the exact number.
I think residents and stakeholders and business people, we were 25 to 30
Yeah.
range, plus then whatever we had for staff.
So about 40 plus.
And
And then on top of the focus groups, we do an enormous amount of, like, research and then best practice, like, SWOT analysis and the scans, so that the focus groups are a critical piece, but there's other players.
Just personally, I like all three of them. I'm not a big fan of lowercase letters and logos. So I thought the first one resonates to me a little better. Actually, we took the third O for at the start of the first one. But then all your O's are different, so you can't do that. But I do prefer I like the funny shape then. And I do like uppercase letters, just a personal.
Yeah, no.
Could you put that funny shaped M inside the blue and white one, or would it be too much contrast with the M and the O?
I would not recommend that, no. You would then get a logo soup happening. We will, of course, mock it up, if people want to see it, but I'm not sure.
Now, I like the blue and white one too, and I like the capital, but did you try it with the hands in there at the end of the big O?
The real hands,
Yeah.
like, so our art director, when she walked out through it, she showed us her, like, literal pictures that she draws the inspiration from. And it was a picture of hands, but we didn't try it with real hands in it, no. I think really because we want to have that kind of, open for interpretation. It could be waves, right? It could be the arc of a wave.
Yeah,
or it could
yeah.
be flow, it could be. So we didn't want to get too literal because we want people to be able to connect with it on their own. But we definitely can try. That's what, like, we'll gather feedback with Ben and then walk away and do other iterations. And I know then the council had decided to actually test with your residents and your stakeholders out in the wild and see what people have and test their feedback.
What group has those hands? That's something, another group.
It is something, I was trying to think of.
All states, but there's also a nonprofit group. Thank you.
Yes,
That's it.
Yeah.
United.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I just to comment on the first thing I thought when I saw that was actually quotations, almost like conversation. I know it's quotations are too, but very aware of that, but I saw apostrophe something. Conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know whether.
I'm gonna make note of that. That's great. But that's the hope for it, is that people draw.
I don't like the first picture with the bridge because it looked too much like Freddie's picture.
It's one group.
We would use real pictures.
I love the color.
And I love the school, I came here when I was 3-year-old,
That's,
and I don't like to change the model town. It has history and it represents how the
I thought it was.
town of Oromocto was formed, but we don't express it. And we don't explain the meaning of the model town. And I think if we use, I don't use that term, but like I said, I've been here all my life. But it reflects on how the little hamlet of Oromocto turned in, to the town of Oromocto. Another thing is, Lincoln is backs to the river, but it's not where the rivers meet technically, because we don't use that term. So.
One could say it comes through Lincoln first.
It would be a practice, yes.
You could dam it up, you know.
Well,
Maybe you should check in. Put that in your budget. Damn it.
I know I've been here since I was young too, but our town has grown so much. It's not about that little neighborhood anymore that's on my side. deaf side of the highway, in Ward 1. It's more than that now, so I do think we have to, reach out and think bigger, but not, like you said at the beginning, not totally, not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just warm it up a bit and change it. And that's why I'm still like the blue, but didn't change.
What was the focus groups, comments that you wanted to add to?
So, Dallas over there knew exactly what it was, and it was a big draw for him in that one, but most of the residents didn't.
So they didn't understand what it was for.
But
What it meant.
to the mayor's point, like, is that a symptom of not, articulating it?
Yeah.
But no, they don't connect with it, they don't know what it means. Also, the M that you currently have was very confusing for folks. They were too, like, almost universal. There was very few people that understood the M or understood the model town.
What's confusing? What's the name?
The soup.
Yeah.
I said, no, no different than the weekly end. It's just a way to make it in.
It's, yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, it's
I thought,
okay, but
yeah.
yeah, but it's people were not, vocal in their love of the animal or the model town. Wasn't that.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And, and I guess I'll, disclose my bias, that I'm a very linear, logical thinker. I'm not one of these, like, look at it and try to take out for yourself what you think it is. And just like you're saying, how some people didn't identify with the funny M in our current, hence the reason for my comment about the funny M in this one. I don't think it does anything for the average person. And that's why I like the simplicity, of the third one in terms of its text and its style. I could even live with the third one with a normal O, but I can accept with your little things in it, if that's what people want to go with. I do actually think that a departure from the blue is a little bit more drastic of a departure maybe than just away from the model town, because hardly no one knows today what it means. People who have been here, like the mayor for a very long time, understand the origin of that whole movement around the model town. It was very important at the
Yes.
time, but like anything that, times do change, and, many organizations go through rebrandings, and they do so with purpose.
And we hate to lose that Canadian for Canada, though, that tag. Because it's especially when you've got a community, especially in New Brunswick and Canada's. Maybe we could
Oh,
keep
yeah.
Canada's modern town. I can't remember.
I vote the tagline, I live on, that more than rivers. I actually like that for a couple reasons. One, it's more than just a short sentence that may be lost in interpretation. But when you bring in the element of nature and anything, it technically mentally connects with people like they do. They, you talked about your logo and you thought it was sun and tree and grass. So I think that you're just using the word river, and something always has that thing where people just sort of feel like it's naturally together. I don't know what it is. So I do like that. I didn't like to put together forever tonight, tomorrow. But I do like the more than rivers connect, and of course, just a little connection to the other one, it kind of makes sense too, but I guess it just sort of kind of says welcome to everyone. It's kind of what it meant to me, more than connect, it just means that everyone's connected.
It's pretty universal, like we had high school students at one focus group, they talked a lot about sustainability and the environment.
Well, that's,
Yeah, we had, your chief was here and she talked a lot about rivers, so it transcended.
But I think that's, the river just has a way to bring everyone into thinking about that as opposed to. And then I like our colleague's point about being able to cater to businesses and growth, because that's really what we have to continue to do, but it's kind of nice to kind of bring that earthy stuff into it too. So that maybe it's a good combination of bringing nature with it.
It's a very unique geographic feature too, like if you think in the context of the country, what you have here in terms of your rivers.
Exactly.
So it's worth, folks' attention.
Yeah. Worth giving up, Canadian modern town for the river.
All the rivers connect to water.
Just modern town. I would take the way the book. A Canadian rivers model.
Councilmember.
Thank you, worship. I think the thing that, intrigues me when you go through these exercises is that just looking at Quispamsis's work. I bet you if you asked 50 people in the town of Quispamsis, 10 of them couldn't tell you what.
Mhm.
If you sat them down and explained to them, they'd great, it's wonderful, I love it. So. I'm gonna step away from what I usually do in this thing. I kind of agree with the mayor. My vote's gonna be on money, one is right, everybody else will be money. I think Canada's model town, if we explain it to people, it will. Could be aspirational, it could be a statement of fact. We are Canada's model. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. We want to aspire to be a Canada's model town, it works on both planes. But if we explain it to people, they probably get it better. But I also have no problem with any of these, but I just think that all these branding exercises, they're kind of like mission statements and value statements. It's hard to argue with any of them when you get the rationale behind them, they make sense. It's keeping them active and keeping them engaged. That's the difference. And, if we're gonna spend a whole bunch of money, and we don't know that number yet. But to me, that's gonna be the big break thing for me. But I like all the options, but I just think that's the problem with all these branding exercises, is to get that information in front of the consumer. I was kind of surprised to hear you say that most of the focus groups did not like Canada's model town. That's important. If they don't like it, they live here. So that's an important distinction. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, off the top of your head, then probably get during focus group consultation, demographics wise. But model town preferred by an older demographic, or was the dislike of it a younger demographic? Or do you remember?
No, I do remember, and I wouldn't want to hold me to it, but in my memory, I think there was maybe 4 people.
In general,
That like-
not necessarily even demographics as far as age, just.
Before that, like,
Literally,
or didn't,
that
Like 10,000.
were not,
for that, like,
or knew about it.
Or understood.
Or knew.
Along one of those.
That's the biggest issue.
and that's back to his point about not knowing.
But we,
That's enough.
but we also don't do it ourselves.
Oh, no, yeah.
Like, it signs up there, Oromocto Canvas Modern Town, yeah, we drive right by it, but do we talk it? We don't even talk it ourselves. We talk about the town of Oromocto, that's what. Maybe in the back of our mind, we kind of know we're the model town, because we're proud of our town, but we don't talk it.
There's also in our research, there's a little bit of inconsistency of messaging in your outreach. Highway, like the highway signage differs from what you see with the model town kind of expression. So the idea here is that you would want to have it be universally used so that it builds on that recognition.
And I'm gonna put a plug in for one more thing whenever we decide what we're gonna do. You talk about pride in your town and what it looks like. Nothing stokes more pride in a town for me than when I drive through small communities and see banners that welcome the tourists and the people into our town. The only time we see anything like that is Pioneer Days, which is part of the Pioneer Committees, and when the Legion puts up. So if we're gonna do something, I think we need to do the whole thing and not piecemeal it and really push our town. That's what we're going to do for marketing.
And we have to be careful when we put pictures, of families.
No, I
gosh, that was a
We ran
nightmare.
through that before, and the gentleman that was there was in the military and he killed his.
It was a lookalike, hypothetically, and we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's the
we have to be
nice.
careful then. I have to be a model with no name, that'd be fine. But you can't have a person that's actually a person, because if they went to jail or molested somebody, it
Apparently not.
changes the whole prospect. But other than that, great work.
Thank you again, and then we'll, receive any other additional feedback. Us, and then we'll determine next steps. terms of any modifications that you might want to see or other kind of representations, whether it be colors, images. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Karen. Okay. We'll now move on to the departmental reports. Now, hopefully they're in the same order that I have. We'll start with the Department of Finance. Any questions or comments on the Department of Finance? Oh. Nobody? I know we're midway, so usually pretty good at midway. From here on in, we gotta be watching more. All right, we'll move on to the staff report, the CEO, the Planning and Compliance Department. Any questions or comments? Councilor Dodd?
Thank you, Richard. Just curious as the new bill, the R1, is R1.
So the house should be, I think, across Good Street, maybe?
Oh, yes, I couldn't figure out where it was. Thank you. Or my duties, thank you.
I've got a question. Now, let's, now, down by, Mulder's across there, which, fence property. Now, they're putting that little mini home in a couple of trailers. What's their idea, what they're gonna do with that?
That's really been, your worship, we touched base a little bit on kind of civic numbering ideas, and I was kind of like, what's the full plan before you assign a number? And we hadn't gotten that beyond that. I know they got, what they have there now, but I don't know what they're trying to beyond.
Yeah, I've got numerous people asking and calling and wanna know. And maybe we get into something, if we could help something, but I just kept saying, your guess is good as mine.
Yeah, it's, I don't have yet a great communication, with my department. We're working on it. Might be others who have more direct needs with them as far as making agreements that have other regular communication, but for me, it's not here.
I know the last one, the smallest trailer there, the latest one was brought in, it was just someone that lived on the reserve and he just took it up and put it there and they were told, the chief told him to move it and he said no. So there it sits.
Yeah, and I can say, your worship, obviously, our group, whether it be through Dallas or Stephen and David, do try to work with the OFN as much as possible to try to get some insight, but as people recognize that sometimes a challenge to get more insight than, tomorrow type thing. So we're used to planning out something, knowing, what that looks like a decade from now. They're not quite there in their decision making, but in that we'll continue to try to liaise with those department or with those contacts we have for them and do the best we can. But yeah, to Dallas's point, with it annexed into the reserve, if they choose not to tell us, it's also there.
No, I understand that. Yeah, we understand that. Okay. We'll move on now to the clerk's office. Any questions or concerns or comments from the clerk's office? The Voyant alert. Just wanna, I don't know if we add things onto it because you're right now, they got new updates on there and you're allowed to put on, you can even guys like ball tournaments or stuff, then you can, I know we can put on with it's being rained out, if the school buses are late, you can do all that stuff on there now, the same. But we only have, how many do we have on it? Do we know? How many actually citizens are logged into that?
Last I heard it was 300 or something.
That's all we have in 1,200, 12,000.
Thus far, yeah, your worship, but there are some more things that they tend to do this fall with some of our, once we get out back into the community and try to engage some more people, but it's something we hope to, by virtue of the sport groups taking hold of it too, because they tend to be, folks who can say, oh, hey, did you know there's this new app that can tell you whether the fields are open or closed? So hopefully some of that will help, bolster the numbers moving forward. But, yeah, it's been slow up to this point, but it's been through the summer, and as people know, it's usually harder to reach the public through the summer months. We'll hit it again, after Labor Day.
Thank you, Richard. And I'm just wondering on something like that, something that could be of great value to citizens in terms of whole variety of issues that will go on in town. I'm wondering if we need to be a little bit more conscientious that when regular correspondences are going out from the town, if that could be included as part of that correspondence.
Yeah, we do have some, stuff that they've given us that people can put up under their, signatures, for emails. Some people are using that now, but yeah, there's lots of tools that we can do to try to keep pushing that message, as we go forward, your worship.
I think it'd be a good idea if we brought the point to alert people in, council.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly look into that one, and see if there's, somebody who do that.
Because I know they're changing and adding things themselves every day, so change it. A lot. Councilor Dodd?
Thank you, Worship. And just speaking on the alert system, is there a ringtone for every different thing they put in?
There, well, yeah, so I'll say there isn't, I know, you know, for example, the other day, people probably got a bit of a jerk. You know, growing pains, right? But, there is a ringtone you can set so that if you really want people to stand up and take note, then that's the one. There aren't different ones, but there's I'll say an emergency type alert. And so that one was one that, we did for a road closure, and it was just, you know, it's us getting used to the system and how we post, but that would be something we would use, like saying, you know, there's a hurricane coming, or there's some, you know, event that we want everybody to, you know, take note of, so. But I'm not aware of, other than that there's different.
We just get a bunch of blame for road construction in hurricane.
Yeah, it's really.
It was definitely loud and sharp compared to the other ones for the, what was that, the Bill Ball guy?
So I'll say it's effective because I definitely am now aware that McLaren was,
Yeah, got hurt.
yeah, so.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the fire. Any questions or comments on the? fire department? I know they did a live burn, I was just wondering where they did the live.
To that, I'm not sure, your worship, but I can certainly find out, and get back to you.
I'd like to see them do one in Lincoln. That's the reason, that'd be great. No other questions on the fire department? All right, we'll move on to the Department of Recreation and Tourism. Any questions or comments? So, Doc?
I should never come with notes that you know I'm going to be asking. Just out of curiosity, and mostly it was the trail on the Facebook page about the bear sightings. Have they moved on? Do we know?
I mean, near as I know. Anymore, so chances are, yes, I mean, obviously, it's that time of year where yearlings, tend to get pushed out of the nest, and so they do tend to wander through, but I have not heard any more about it since, so I'm going to assume that it has moved on.
There's a lot of, I know a lot of deer, a lot of raccoons. They're moving through too. Thank you.
You were, I just reviewed the BIC, well, from 1600 round, and they're just fantastic. We all that numbers up, down, is that our average? I've never noted that in the past, I just wasn't sure if anybody knew.
It's a good question. I can't answer that, but I can certainly find out through Jackie whether that's trending up or down.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Move on to the Department of Corporate Services. Any questions or comments? Yeah, okay, move on to Department of Engineering and Public Works. Any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Maloney?
Yeah, just quickly, your worship, through you to Mr. Bass, when is the paving company to be here for their final things, next couple weeks, or?
Next week, they should be here, so curve will be ready. We have to wait for curving, so my work one side of the curve today, give the other side tomorrow. And then from grade and pay,
Thank you.
and there's some process. So they're all.
Thank you.
Councilor Dodd?
Thank you. I noticed in your report that you had something on the Hammond development. Is it moving along?
Your worship, we have the preliminary design, so we're just doing reviews of that.
Okay.
There's nothing. I don't think they're starting this year. It's also be. The Hospital workers. Then I will see if they can do some. Keep that.
So there's still ongoing conversation. It's something they're still planning on moving ahead with, just getting all the ducks in a row. And just a question on the Onondaga, I call them the Onondaga Apartments, down by the river. It seems to be slow down. Or is it just not moving along as fast as our nice new ripping home, because that was, that's good.
Well, they have a very small crew.
That's what,
Oh.
very little, like every day it seems to be different for. Dexter showed up this week to do some of the site work.
Thank you.
Now, Steve, do you guys do, the driveways, the curves on the driveways? Do you guys shade them down?
We contract them. So let's say there's a curb cut, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a process where residents come to the planning and compliance office. They do, if there's a fee, depending on the width that you want, then once we receive the fee, Dallas. So staff sends it to David, and we go mark them, and then we call Meyer with the contract.
Oh, okay, yeah, because a neighbor talked to me the other day, and he was asking.
So
I
there's
said, I thought we had a cutter, so I thought we had the shaver, but,
not for concrete.
oh, no. So that's the process, so I just tell him that. So would you go through the works department?
He goes through Dallas.
Dallas?
Yeah.
Bingo.
There's a minimum fee for a cut of less than 1.5 meters.
Perfect. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. And we'll move down to administration. We'll start with 5A, the Oromocto West Water Use Treatment Recommendations. Steve and Dave got that?
And we like our logo better. We have the green, the blue, everything. Oh, gee.
It is a nice logo.
Well, actually, I do too.
And David designed it. There you go.
Yeah, it is nice.
Little cheap. Yeah, so with the Oromocto West wastewater feasibility study, we had commissioned a study to look at replacement options for the treatment plant we have. Prior to that, we had done a study to reassess its capacity and volume. So this is kind of the outline of the presentation, so a little bit of a recap. Project scope, which was asked of the consultants, getting into some of the criteria they used to determine the sizing, the recommendations, getting into cost analysis, location, and the next steps. This is a brief recap. Plant was installed in 2003. 2004, we started to see potential limitations with all the growth that was going on in Oromocto West. There was subsequently some studies done. We had some flooding issues. 2011, we redirected 25% of it through the forest main to go to the base. That bought us some breathing room to expansion of the plant and whatnot. But due to growth, we've offset that 25% now. So the project scope was to look at assessing some new build options. Looking at replacing the current plant with a lift station and pumping everything to base gauge down for treatment. Identify some potential locations, identify or assess the base gauge down treatment plant for handling the capacity if we pumped it there. Service options and looking at problems. So one of the criteria was if we're gonna build something, we gotta make sure it's gonna work. See the future. So with the growth projections, so counting the number of houses in Oromocto West, find about 2.3 people per home. Oromocto West, approximate population 2,356. Now, with all the development projects that we are aware of, including Hannah developments, apartment complexes, future growth of that. Hannah developments is probably around 2035 to complete that. So adding that number on would bump the population up to 3,800, 1,400 roughly. Using a 1% growth overall, projecting 2050 to take us up to 5,500. And topping that number up, if we decondition the lift station that pumps to the base now, it's in the opposite direction. So, we're 25-year cycle, we're looking at a population of 6,000 along the west. So this is kind of the number they used. Say we put a treatment plant in, we need to handle this type of amount for probably the next 25. So even if we have an exponential growth, there'd still be room to handle capacity. If we accelerate beyond 1%, still gives time to deal with any more expansion needs. One was a PR sequence and batch reactor. The cons to this is, pros. This is it's relatively small size. It's the location would be good because it'd be right beside the existing treatment. Parts, ease of transferring over. Cons with it is there's a lot of complexity to it because it's very mechanically based. Cost to operate that with a lot of electricity and a lot of moving parts to maintain. Get into some more specialized training, possibly additional staffing. Option 2 is more standard lagoon. Lagoons are, they don't take any more additional staffing than what we have. Lower operating costs compared to ability for expansion. Downsizes they're very large. Take a large footprint. Or it could be on-sitely. And with this type of scenario, you have to remove the sludge over probably anywhere from a 15 to 20-year period. So if you get to that point where there's major cleaning process, where in the previous option that's ongoing, like in a weekly month. Then the third option was to replace the existing treatment plant with a lift station, which would pump to the base. The pros of that is it's very small, compact. The downside is you would have to upsize pipe for almost 8 kilometers. So that red line is installing 2 new double force main pipe all the way up to OHS. Then the green line would be upsizing the existing gravity pipe to the town's limits. Yellow pipe is upsizing base there. Yeah, even though the lift station is very small and compact at that end, the large disruptions in town You go from basically going to one side.
How deep are those pipes have to be?
6 feet, but then you get into gravity, then it's. So,
Oh, yeah.
but it's made of disrupting the whole length of Loss's Road, basically. Can't out from one end to the other. And there's not that many contractors, that'd be a 3 to 4 year project. Besides. So,
And the thing with it too is the lift station itself, I mean, the compact, this would be. Burlington has comparable lift station, but it would be a different station for us. Because you're pumping up west. And then down over the underpass, up over the highway, there's a lot of more complications there.
yeah,
Yes,
And that's going into base, but the other ones aren't.
no, the other ones are, which is why this would not really.
That's right.
so this is sending the base, getting the base. So out of those three options. You get into the cost analysis. The capital cost will be cost of construction. So the mechanical plant is about 18 million, the lagoon is 21, the lift station unit. The lift station costs are exponential because of all the things.
And when you look at the three price, remember that these projects are normally funded 1/3, 1/3. So basically from the highest to the lowest, it's only $1 million difference. That when you see the operating costs, you'll see that you recuperate that within a few years.
So the operating cost here, as you see, with the mechanical plant, you just go straight to the totals, you got 538, the lagoon 344, and the station 502. So there's, between even just the SBR and the lagoon, you got about $150,000 per year of operating costs.
And in the 344, the $23,000 that we put there, that would pay for the 20-year. So that's like we do with the water tower, I would put $37,000 aside per year to revamp the water tower when we need to. So that 23,000 is just putting money in the bank. So when you get to year 20 or 15, depending on how much sludge needs to be removed, it's already covered. So we're not asking for that money in 15 years.
So you can see on the sludge management line, it's 207 mechanical. That's because that's ongoing every year. You have to dispose of that sludge. That's why the size of this functional code.
When you say the lagoon has to be, it has a large footprint, what are you talking about?
We will see after.
Oh, okay, so
That's why it was important for the consultants to determine population base to see how much size you need to handle over time. So then this gets into life cycle costs. So this is at the end of the life cycle of the unit, so you can see similar costing also in those. So our capital costs are relatively the same, our lifetime costs are relatively the same. It's the operational costs on an annual basis. So when we look at all of that, the recommendation is the lagoon. Primarily because of operating costs. And as we go through here, the following. Capital investment similar, life cycle costs similar, lease construction disruption. Remote and out of sight, flood resiliency, expandable. The downside is the large size of land needed. Again, same concept. The other issue too is you get into probably a little more regulated. Because you have some wetlands, surrounding wetlands and of course, there's a bit more process. So with location, I did a comparison with some other lagoon sites. Spring Hill is up by the Bucket Brook. Well, it's about 100 meters from the nearest residential. We got to Maryland, then another 100 meters, and then Quispamsis. So that's just to get a comparison of where this lagoon will be in relation to. So the green area would be the lagoon basins, which gives you about 100-meter buffer between the edges of Stacy Court. The teal blue in the upper side is about 30 meters or 100 feet back of the residence along Dorothy Brook.
And that would be used as our access. That's the point that doesn't flood in the highest floods, we can still access that. And there's still possibilities if we ever saw it, we could still build a road either through Johnson Avenue if we needed to.
So the idea with this location is you're in a forested area.
but they're also in a relatively flood zone area, so this would be built up to make it more. Friendly. But it's not an area where we would have had residential.
That's right.
So this picture here shows purple area is the town owned land. And the green area is the Ducks Unlimited. Showing that we are kind of at the tail end of the town where we wouldn't be doing much development in the future scope anyway. This location also allows us to, if we ever wanted to expand more cells, to say we have more growth. Or we even want to bring stuff from the east side, bring it over to the west center. It's like reversing
Which
direction.
is one of the things that in the next steps, and, you know, if we can't get into agreements with the base to take over the plants, well, we have to reduce our operating costs. So that would be one of the next step that we would look at is reversing some of the flows to bring more sewage to Oromocto.
That red line in there that you see, that is the proposed outfall, right? So there's two options. We can have a new outfall that's recommending here, or to fight back to the original outfall. It's a little longer distance. So these things need to be sorted out a little more depth. But it's kind of showing that where they're showing it's on a berm, which divides stuff into two. There's some logistics that have to be ironed out.
So you said Johnson Avenue, so it's gonna be hidden in that treat area when.
It's actually beyond Stacy for a Mill Creek and
Oh, yeah, okay,
Burnett, so
yeah,
beyond that.
up in there.
If you go to the training site. So where the gravel pit used to be around that area, it's a little bit further.
So how far the buffer zone?
For Stacy Court, will be 350 feet roughly, to a house, like we took the backyard, so. The street. It's a lot further than what the plan is currently to all those houses around. You know, and we've checked other municipal, and let's be honest, lagoons are. Like having lagoons area, so basically just inject air. So lagoons don't smell, you can, you know, what I mean, unless it's really, but it would never smell compared to what we have. And that,
Right.
And there would be a tree buffer zone.
yes, we're keeping a tree buffer zone, we're keeping everything.
So as you can see up there,
And it would have to be fenced in too.
Yes, it's all fenced in, and like, when I was in Grand Falls, we had a lagoon there, and it's the easiest system, like, the guys would spend on average 5 hours. And then just to do, you have to do your samples and to make sure all your areas are working, and that's it. They do a check around the lagoon, that's it.
Yeah, because when I went to the Mayor's Convention, there were people there that talked about it, and they said that was the best way.
Oh, it's the best way, it's the
And
least
easiest,
option.
And there's one in Lincoln. What's the one in Lincoln with the mini home park? They have this. No, if you're going down Lincoln and you go visit mini home park on this side. No. Tamarack. No, the other side. Yeah, and there's a lagoon at the end of that. Yeah, that's what that.
But I mean, Mirror Machine, you've been to Mirror Machine, the one is right across on the Superstore,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's right.
right at the end of before you get to the bridge.
So what's the cons against the lagoons? So, yeah, pros and cons. Just nothing other than size?
Basically nothing.
And
What other
remove
potential-
those such, which is a thing, but. seems so-
My mind is screaming, New Maryland had a problem with the lagoons. What was,
so one of the things Maryland had
thank you, I knew.
is their outfall, where they were discharging, going into a creek. There may have been other issues, but I do recall this. And going to the creek, sometimes the creek was drying up, so the water wasn't being channeled away like it ideally would be.
Now, what happens with the new lagoon too, is you have the UV disinfectant that you didn't have to stand.
Yeah,
So the water is a lot cleaner.
it's cleaner, but there also wasn't a wash away, so to speak.
And what's the solution to wash away?
Well, for us, we would be going to
The river's
Oh,
always.
yes.
We're not.
We just gotta think of once.
That's okay.
Yeah, we'll do, but I've seen it worked around before. They've been around for a while. And is that where the industry or the regulation will be going? In 30 years, is that going to still be acceptable as opposed to a treatment facility, which is where? So there'll be a higher continual year-to-year cost, you know, the whole sludge thing again, but like, is that are we gonna run into something in 30 years that is, this is no longer acceptable, now you're gonna be going, you know, this new war. I'm just trying to think ahead for the thing.
What get into is potentially like a hybrid connection. So,
They may have to upgrade this and add.
so by the Spring Hill one. looking at
Yes.
upgrade, because they had so much development around it.
Yes.
They can upgrade it to more of a lagoon, so they don't have slopes. So now they're looking at the mechanicals and to connect to it in combination with it. So in a scenario like this, you could expand more like lagoon. But there are other technologies that you can add on to it, just to meet a higher level of.
Right.
But it doesn't say you can't have the lagoon.
I mean, our plant is, the yield here and it was overdated, so it's been here and, you know.
Very long
Very
time.
long time.
Oh, yeah, because that's old.
But you know, I mean, we get still approval. Okay, we're not meeting the guidelines. We still get approval. They can't force us to do something until we get the funding. And most of the small municipalities fall.
Feeling parts of the lagoon is below maintenance, but also not having to have. Skill set. That's the mechanics player.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, because. But how deep, they're more than the lagoon be.
They're not that. It's just that they don't want what.
And they were told on rainwater, we would never get enough.
No. Yeah, big.
So you see a lot of rivers, they're almost built like a berm.
Yeah.
That's built up and then back down in like a big bowl. In this scenario, you'd have to build it up too, because you're also trying to make it flood resilient.
That's the way it was.
There's a flood wall do come up around that area, so.
What?
These,
How does that affect that?
the spot that they picked, elevation wise, is higher up. You know, flood water will come to the point.
Right.
But this is the spot where it'd be higher. But
A high
it
point.
will be resilient.
And the area around it is high enough if we need to expand by one more?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know we have the land.
Oh, yeah.
Deputy Mayor? Thank you, Richard. I have a colleague actually that lives very close to the one on Spring Hill. And knowing that this discussion would be coming up at some point, I did kind of ask them their input and they said, you never smell a thing. So I was reassured to hear that part. My question is more in terms of timeline projection. Oh, sorry.
Before you move on, how does the lagoon work? How's, what does it do?
It's basically a selling pond. And then the water goes up and then goes to the next cell.
But how does it work with the system, like the septic, what is it?
How's it get there?
So what it's gonna do is it's going to come into an existing wastewater treatment.
What?
That plant will be dismantled, basically, converted into a small thing. So the first, one of the first further off, in the lift station public base.
Right.
Because of the distance, the elevation, depends being the speed. This one here would be smaller lift station, getting into a certain elevation, and some of them might actually get to gravity too.
Right. Yeah.
Comes into the lagoon, comes into the chambers. With the aeration, it's riling up the water, and as the air is getting mixed more into it, the organics gets to digest.
Sort of like a septic.
Yeah, it's the same. It's just a big
It's
septic.
above ground septic.
And then you got the two chambers, and then one kind of helps to settle stuff out. And that's where you have the sludge build up time, so over the longer period of time, eventually you have to do clean it.
Like you can septic tank. Yeah, from the slope.
I'm mistaken, I think driving to St. John. So
Yeah,
just-
that's one right there.
In St. John,
At the visitor information center.
you go by the visitor information center.
Yeah.
The Urban Nature Park, there's lots of good.
Pool.
Let's see.
Okay.
They're not.
Kind of work in their favor. Is
It's
because of the location of the trees. Most, a lot of municipalities, those are growing. Heritage will move because you may have so much development in the same area. For those that don't live here. Fortunate enough that we actually just down the road, we do them.
So that's going to take some. I never thought I'd get excited. That's going to take Oromocto West. What about the stream that's on Oromocto East end? Eventually down the road, is that?
This is what we're looking at, eventually turning some up in the PMQ, they're the easiest. And some a little bit more up the east, like by West North, because Lawfield and Mohawk, we can turn those lift stations to send back. That's what we're.
So down the road,
Yeah.
because I know long time ago, when I sat on PAC, there was a concern about the lift stations. Taking more and more was putting through there, and eventually we're gonna have to do something, and we have to, I know we keep the maintenance up, but if you're looking at a lagoon for the whole town, and we have the space up or down the road, and we just, I know it's when we stop at bids, they stop, so we have to do something, but
And the other thing you'll see in the presentation that follows, the CAO was proposing to put a lot of money into funding our infrastructure. And the water and sewer, one of the big things we want to do is start with some of the lift stations that need it. Because they haven't been touched so long, so that's, like, for example, Wood Street is a big lift station that needs to be over. You have to do with the force main pipe and all,
and that's,
you know.
right, that's the one
Yeah.
that usually has some strips on it.
So our main lift station, ones with the brick house. Is the original. They're getting 70 years old, so it's not even just the pipes coming to them, it's the pipes.
Okay.
So they need to be refurbished. But we also want to take the opportunity to look at it, the bigger scale and say, is there something more we can do to make more efficiencies out of that? It could be changing directions, say, okay, well,
When did we do 2015? I think we did them all. We did those two, we replaced pumps and those have been done more recently.
Thank you.
Council Bowman?
Thank you, I just, what size are that, size of football field, 2 football fields, I mean, did you get that close yet?
So I think Granite Falls is about 2 football fields and services the whole town, which is about 6,000 people. So, you know, to put it in perspective, it'd be pretty close.
Thank you.
And
Look at the turf field and double that size. Not,
So the future roadmap, the idea is to look at starting at an RFP process for the consulting firm to look at doing a possibly a 2-part design. So points 3 and 4, the design to be broken into 2 parts, preliminary, which be looking at the option that we want to deck, say the lagoon, and proving that it will work in the sense of environment, the water courses, the soil conditions are good, you know, everything kind of fits into place to say, yeah, this is the right spot, and it's going to tie together. Proof of concept. And that all works out, then the detailed design take place, and that's the actual design of the facility and all the like this. So on the conservative side, we figured it's about 6 months for each one of these steps. As you can see, first steps were 280,000. So that's just engineering design. Overall, the engineering costs is. That's site visits and their whole construction. So part of this is to get permission to go ahead with an RFP process and start getting some feedback from consultants and see where we go with that. Also to pursue funding opportunities to see what we can get covered with this. We feel that there's pretty good opportunities to get some funding because of the historical situation, treatment plant. Twofold problem in the sense that it's limiting our capacity to grow. And it's also affected by floods. Big environmental component to getting the super sources. On the design side and hopefully the construction side. So by going by this timeline, potentially construction 2026. You know, the plant itself was probably a year's work without the power. But all the piping stuff, so it's be 2027.
which we would get like design RFP costs for budget. We're planning to get something, so we can present to council, so it's budgeted for 2025.
So who developed this presentation?
David.
You should have hired Houston.
I know the moving wheels and everything.
We came up with an end that, you know, how to go. Pay us that much for that. Well, I know, we came up with a few things.
This all came from the previous.
Don't tell them this.
That's why we don't.
Well, it's not gonna
change our time on the public works building.
Take your compliments. and
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So there's a request for decision, your worship, that is basically just giving us the warm and fuzzy to start with the RFP.
Council?
Do we have the money somewhere?
There's sums up going in.
Well, no, the RFP would be for worship to be in the budget for 2025.
Yeah, no, it's a definite yes.
Thank you, worship.
I never thought we had a big pool of water somewhere. I always thought it was gonna have to be another big ugly building.
We're keeping with the blue team.
But it's not gonna be a tourist attraction.
Please don't treat it.
Yeah.
Whitewater rafting.
Not really sure the water's blue, but
Whitewater.
Yeah, those pictures made me
Riley,
want to
that's
see.
Riley.
I'll tell you a story, when I was in Grand Falls, and one of the operators went, we had a building next to it. He went to the building to grab a grinder, got to put the truck in park. So the truck went right into the lagoon. He had to get a diver to come in so they could hook the truck because he couldn't rip the liner by pulling the truck out. They had to get divers from Evanston, the city police. They came, the divers dove in, could only feel where the bumper of the truck was and hooked up so that the crane could lift it out.
I want to pay for it, you know, my end.
And luckily, you know, the guy didn't just try to stop it. Nobody would have known where it disappeared, you know? It would have been brand new truck. Nobody would have known where it disappeared. It just-
Well, obviously, it was electric.
All right. We'll move to 5B, the 5-year financial outlook with CEO. No,
that's gonna be with, our finance folks and treasurer John Thompson. I don't know if Peter's support, but he may be. But we'll let John, roll with the update. I mean, for me, the preamble here, folks, is just, we brought the original plan, which was approved last year, and so the process that we want to get into every year is to bring it back and as we move forward, our crystal ball becomes clear on years as we move. So we add an extra year and make sure we're staying on track, make sure that we're able to give staff clear direction beginning of the process for budgeting. So with that, we'll let John take it away.
Thank you, your worship. So, let's go right into here.
Dan. Press the Dan.
That's a good, but
Yeah, okay. Thought I was holding. Okay, again, the objective tonight is to just give an update on the last year's 5-year financial plan and that year, as the CAO said. Is to provide a high-level overview of the financial plan incorporating the major investments on the horizon. Review the impact of these investments on our tax rate and water sewer rates. And to gather and review feedback and comments at this time. And anticipating the approval of this updated plan will give direction to staff for the 2020. This here is just a sample resolution that if we were to, the council was in agreement with this financial plan, that we would bring a resolution for Thursday night to have approval of this updated plan. Looking at the water and sewer projections, this is the same chart you saw last year. We're still proposing to stay the course and do the same rate increases for 2025. See an additional $25 per quarter on the fixed rate. You'd see the variable consumption rate, proposing that it drop by 20 cents per cubic meter. The billing per average household would be $279. So that's an increase of, $18 per quarter. So, and then moving forward with the proposed, for 2026 to 2029 with the same increase in 2026 and then holding for 27 and 28. The water cost for fire protection is decreasing by $114,000 a year from 2025 to 2028. So that provides a bit of a funding challenge. We also need to absorb the D&D water sewer rate increase average of $220,000 per year for the next 10 years. All other operating costs expected to increase by 3% per year for $70,000.
Looking at, you know, each year proposing that we can find some operational savings of 40,000 so that we can have a net operating cost of 30,000 per year. Increase. Assuming takeover of a D&D wastewater treatment plant by 2028, and operating costs will be offset by fees charged to D&D. That's still on the horizon and still looking to take a look at that. The projected quarterly billing will be equal to the city of Fredericton. Sometimes people are wondering about, you know, how does our water rates compare with other municipalities in the area, but when we look at it, it will be comparable. Water sewer recap. I think council maybe has heard that we have been working with the new software Waterworth and doing some analysis. And one of the things that comes out of this is the water sewer recap, this graph that kind of shows going forward what we need and where we are. So the first thing to look at is the bars across. They represent funding based on the current plan. And the types of things that are in that is, I need to get my sheet here because I can't read that from here, it's so small. When you look at the bars going up, that's the various things that make up the funding. The brown line represents our variable rate, what we get from water sewer rates, the consumptions. The fixed rate is the orange yellow line. And then we have our other operating revenue in there. The blue line in bar is represent grants that we would apply for various water sewer projects. And then the borrowed funds are the red line, the red part of the bar. Well, what that shows is that then when you look at the waves going across, the bottom is blue is the operating expenses, then our purchased water. And then there's a bit of a green line in there because we don't have much current debt in the water sewer, but there's proposed debt going forward. Then also the big green wave that you see near the top, that's our capital projects. But as you can see from the graph, when you look at the funding and look at the things we're proposing with the current rate plan, that we can fund all those projects. And one last line is if you look at the bottom, there is a little thin black line on the zero going across, and then you see in between 27 and 2028, it starts to dip. That represents our cash position. So as we're moving along, if we stay the course with our rate increases, we can fund and break even with what we've got proposed. But as we get to 2028, you can see it start to down. We don't maintain our projected rate increases. 2025 budget considerations, we're recommending that we stay the course with the water sewer rate plan for 2025 as per council resolution from last September. Also, we're proposing to review rate revenue structure to better reflect service model. And one of the things that we want to look at for this budget season is when you look at the residential, we have a number of multi-unit complexes in town, but there's like 1 meter feeding those. And there's just one fixed rate for a residence that could have 40 units in it. So as to maybe take a look at that, where we could generate some more revenue from the fixed service fee on some of those bigger units that are in town, rather than just going with a per meter charge. Also seek additional provincial federal funding directly related to water sewer projects. That's always something we're looking at and thinking about. And then as far as what used to be called gas taxes, now the Canada Community Building Fund program is to allocate that to projects and renewals when absolutely necessary. But first is to seek other funding programs for the water sewer projects that we can take advantage of rather than just using all our gas tax for the water sewer. Why continue with the rate plan? The need for increased capacity sewage treatment in Oromocto West. D&D water sewer rate increase of 15% over each of the next 2 years, approximately 266,000 per year. Need to catch up on existing aging infrastructural pipes, operational modernizations that can lead to efficiency through investments. Operational costs to reflect real costs, i.e. the water cost transfer. Again, it's looking at the rates where The general operating fund with our water cost transfer continues to subsidize the water sewer. So we've been looking at, again, I think an earlier slide said we're gonna reduce that water cost transfer by $114,000 a year, but make the water sewer utility as it should be more self-sufficient in funding itself. Taxes do not cover water sewer infrastructure and maintenance. Legislation dictates this must be funded through direct water and sewer billing. So that's what we want to do by reducing the water cost transfer.
Worship.
Oh, and Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. Can I ask you to just go back to, the, updated water and sewer projections where the nice little grid is? I just have a question. I just need to be reminded. I know I'm quite sure I remember the rationale. I just want to be reminded. So the current fixed of 8750 to 11250 to an eventual plateau or where it's going to be at 13750. Is that number 13750 deemed to be the number necessary for the upgrading and maintenance of the infrastructure in which everyone shares a portion thereof? Is that what that fixed is really meant there to handle?
That's basically what it's, well, to cover operational plus replacement of things, but it's also that each home or residence or business, you have pipes going in front of your home or whatever. And the way the model we've had is by just basing our water sewer billing on consumption. If you don't use much water, you don't pay as much or contribute as much, where, well, everybody has the pipes going by their home that we will come fix if they need to be fixed, whether you use a little bit of water or lots. It's kind of like to switch the model from a consumption rate more to a fixed where everybody pays their fair share.
And that 13750 is deemed to be the sweet spot or the appropriate amount as is needed to do the upgrades that are needed and also to be able to do the additions thereof that are needed.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at with water sewer rates combined with the funding and other things we're hoping to get. Right now, everything is being covered.
I think if you looked at the second graph, you see our projections to 2028 are good. But John, if you advance it to the next slide, you're gonna see that it starts to drop here below. So we're underfunded at this point. So in 2029, we have to make a decision. Can we hold that rate or will we need to increase it? Chances are you're gonna have to continue to increase it slightly because you're gonna have inflationary costs. You're gonna still require recap on things, but what we can do, at least in the next few years, is say, look, we know we burden and stretch people really hard because we had to catch up. So we can give everybody a couple of years of a breather, and then we gotta start moving up very slightly with the pace of inflation. So that you don't go 10 years and don't raise it and then you're right back in the same position you were 2 years ago. With forced to have to make major increases, so that's why we think until 28, we can maintain that fixed rate chart. We'll have to consider something.
So the next big thing is looking at our general operating side, it's looking at the tax rate projection for the next 5 years. This again is the same chart as you saw previous year, which is 2029 added. We're proposing that we maintain the rate increases that we had forecast. It's an increase of 1.5 cents in 2025 for the Oromocto, the old Oromocto area. In 2025, with the 2-cent increase through 2028, hold the rate in 2029 if possible. The federal rate follows a consistent ratio as the town, and then the Lincoln Ward still proposing a 4-cent increase for 2025 and 2026. And then in 2027, they would have a 2-cent increase consistent with the rest of the town for 2027 and 2028, with the potential rate hold in 2029. Tax rate analysis, we just took a look again at some of the current tax rates for 2024 with other municipalities, just to see where we fall, and, you know, we're mid-range there, with other municipalities. Major investments on the horizon, 2024, we've already, gained approval for 2 fire trucks that we will be funding long-term in the future, but that was the purchase of 2024 major investments of 3.1 million. 2025, looking at water and sewage line replacements, 15 million. 2026 wastewater treatment solution, 25 million. 2027 Oromocto Community Recreation and Wellness Center, 50 million. In 2030, but looking way out, 2030, proposed fire station could be another 10 million. So it's just some of the big things that are on the horizon, and those are built into our forecast, funding some of those. Oromocto Community Recreation Wellness Center, again, estimated cost 50 million, town share, we get funding could be 16.7 million. 2024, looking at some initial assessments, public consultation, project plan, funding, tender award. There's a decision coming up in September 2024 for that. 2025 to 2027, site abatement and demolition design, construction management testing, 1.9 million. 2028 annual debenture principal and interest payments of 1.44 million over 20 years. Increase on current tax rates to accommodate this bill. So these things are built into the forecast that we have by holding the current rate projection increases. Fire station estimated cost 10 million. Water sewer utility, wastewater treatment solution. Presentation just previous to this, decisions to make, estimated cost to be 25 million. Town share 8.5 million with funding from federal provincial government. Water sewer line renewal. Water sewer line renewal, 5 million. Debenture principal and interest payments of 365,000. Increase on rates to accommodate above noted capital projects renewal. Increase in water costs from D&D. So between the water costs, increase in D&D and these projects, we're recommending the whole rate increases. Forecast assumptions, the inflation 2025, 4%. Then built into the forecast, 2026 to 2028, 3%, 2029, 2%. Operating costs for multicultural generational center and arena will be an additional 1.25 million to the operations cost 2028. Community funding and equalization grant is 510,000. It's going to 0 by 2027. These all cause some, funding challenges for us that we have to meet, and that's only through rate increases. Regional Service Commission charge increase at the rate of inflation. Minimum is 245,000 in 2024 with something new. Assume takeover of D&D wastewater treatment plant by 2028 and operating cost offset by fees charged to D&D. Gas tax funding earmarked for capital projects, and all major capital projects will require funding from provincial and federal governments of 2/3 minimum. And with that, it's recap.
Any questions or comments, council? None? Okay. We'll move on to the budget survey.
Budget process, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we just did the budget. Okay, budget process.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's a draft memo from the CAO to department heads with the 2025 municipal budget preparation process. Key highlights for council is for this year, we're looking at planning for inflationary increases on operational accounts of up to 3%. Over the past couple of years, we've had some right sizing with some of our account lines where we allow people more than inflationary increases to make up for some things that were held in the past, or they weren't allowed to, budget for more. So we feel we're at a point that we can limit it to 3% or with inflation. As always, so part of this process, the direction is for people to provide information if they require more, and, what is the risk, what is, things that can be mitigated, or if not, we'll take a look at it, but there'll be, as always, justification for increases. Capital investment requirements, everybody's been directed or will be to, get their quotes and get ready to justify what they need and why. Big thing for council as we get down to page 3, looking at the top. Looking at mid-October, October 15th, public consultation at CIC. And then the big highlight for council this year is proposing, rather than do a Saturday or Sunday all day budget presentation, is to look at picking an evening. We're proposing October 24th is a Thursday evening, to do it in an evening where department heads would come in and present to council. And I think I think last year it was acceptable. We kind of, instead of going page by page and line by line last year, we tried to bring it where people come in, department heads come in and present, the major highlights in their budget, what's increasing or decreasing, or some of the main points or capital projects. So we believe that we can get through an evening with doing it the same as we did last year. Then we would be looking at public presentation of the budget on November 15th, the CIC to council, November 21st, looking for council approval of the budget, and then we have it submitted to the province by November 22nd. If you look at page 4, it just shows where we had the all-day session, we had the timeline there, we just proposed starting on October 24th at 5 p.m. and scheduling the department heads and get it presented that night. So I don't know if the CIO, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I think that covers really for council's awareness. We want to just make sure the dates are out there so you can build them into your calendars. And the other major change was, instead of tying up folks on a weekend, both yourselves and staff, we feel like we can start at 5 o'clock. We'll even feed you and be out of here by 9:30 and achieve the same goal. And then you have gets back. So those are the real points for us to bring to council. And if council is okay with that, then we'll finish up the draft and get the memo out to our department heads. Staff will, staff's already working away to some degree, but then start working on their budget process for this fall.
Thank you, Worship. I support that for sure. I do notice on your timeline, it says October 15th, mid-October, tax warrant confirmed by ELG. Have there been some initial forecasts as to what is projected with tax assessments?
Yeah, I mean, your worship, I can say, I met with some of our contacts that I have through the assessment branch, and so there's a few things, and I think I sent to everyone a bit of info that they sent to me from just explaining how it works. But one of the changes that's happening this year is they're resetting how the dates in which they calculate assessment base. And so it used to go from essentially May 31st to I guess, or I'll say April 31st to like May 1st type thing. And now they're resetting it like most provinces to do it from January 1 to December 31. But in doing so, there is a reset this year to take us from January 1 of 2024 to December 31st, 2024. where last year we're gonna have a bit of an overlap because they've accounted for the first 6 months of 2024 already in our tax warrant last year. So what it really means is that there's gonna be a duplication, so they already know half the year's warrant. It's been done, so the next half is the tidying it up. We'll probably see a bit of an increase, and most of that increase will be as a result of the cap protection. Right, so if you were an individual who received a 20% assessment increase 2 years ago, you only paid for 10% 1 year. So now you're gonna have to pay that second 10%. So all that being said, they're suggesting that we probably will see a 6 or 7% increase overall on assessments as a result, because you're getting the benefit of another 10% for those who got protected by spike. And whatever new construction that came online, but in this year, only the last half of 2024, so from June until the end of the year.
Councilor Bell?
Just a question on the presentation, October the 24th, will be in a regular session at council. So are we not doing the regular session at council? Or are we doing it for?
That would be the week after. So if you look at our dates in October, regular session would fall on an 18th, 17th, and then we would do it the
17th.
following Thursday. So it won't happen on the same night as regular.
Second.
Oh, right, sorry. Didn't go up high enough, there's an extra week there, because I thought it was the same week.
Yeah.
Right, okay, perfect.
Questions? Okay, we'll move down to the budget survey.
One of your worships are, so one of the things we're adding in as part of the public consultation piece is a survey, and so we drafted a bit of I'll say a survey, and it's not completely done yet in terms of, you'll see some blanks or some things we still gotta complete, but we wanted to give council an opportunity to see what the survey might look like. So the intent there is to be able to post this survey in probably mid-September, around the 9th or 10th of September, and run it until about the 30th. And we'll close it so that we have a couple of weeks prior to our first public consultation to add anything to that particular presentation that may come out of the survey. So the survey you've had in your packages, and we wanted to structure the survey, so I reached out to a few different communities to see across Canada and how they might have structured. This was the one we felt kind of resonated the most, that wasn't leading, but gathered enough information that, if somebody really wanted to speak to something, they could, but at the same time, not asking you, oh, do you want to spend $50 million on a new community center? When that's too leading to the point where you're not gonna get anything valuable out of it, because you're gonna have half the people say no and half the people say yes, and right back the same vote. So hopefully everyone had a chance to review the survey. If there is any comments, questions, or things that they feel were missing, then certainly you can send them up to myself or Cindy, and we'll attempt to finalize the survey so we can get it up about around the second week of September.
Councilor Bell?
Thank you. Just have a question about the survey in prefer not to say. I just was going back through to see how many were, it was just the three. Does it matter? If they prefer not to say, like, is that information that you need or not? Because
Well-
why bother even putting it on?
Right, so I'll say it's a little bit of where we're at in this day and age, so. What it is it's a giving people the ability of choice, but I can tell you, if you check prefer not to say. Then chances are you're most likely not a resident. But you give them the opportunity, because some people are still sensitive to their information and whether they think, well, they don't need to know if I'm a resident or not a resident. Well, if you feel that strongly, you can check prefer not to say, but chances are then you may very well not be a resident.
I thought, why bother? You're not, why bother filling in the survey? if you're not- Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, worship. I really like it. I love the idea. I think the more voices and the more input you can get back to help inform your budgeting process, the better. I just have a question. I'm not even saying it's right or wrong. It's just a question of anonymity. And I say this only in the sense of, if you have an individual who is highly passionate about something or highly against something, and they want to do the survey 14, 15, 16 times, it would skew your data terribly. Right? So, and especially if you get a low sample size in your response. I mean, if you get 500 people response and someone does it 10 times, then, it's not a big deal. But if you get, 50 people to respond and someone fills out 20 of them, and now you would probably see patterns, but if they didn't vary the other responses, but I just wonder that, and I'm not sure if there's a way around that, other than saying you have to put your civic address or your name or something like that. I don't know how important anonymity would be in this particular case. But if it is important, then it has to go there, and you have to deal with whatever ramifications come from a potential of it not being hiding your identity or
Isn't that
having
way
your
that when
identity.
you open a link, you can't open it again?
Yeah, there is. Like,
When you
if it's-
access something,
exactly. So if you're gonna program it that way, it could be programmed, so you.
like, you know, when you fill it out once, because it
Um,
doesn't work for you the next.
Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there for consideration
No,
in
it's
the
good,
whole
good
process.
idea.
Thank you.
It's a valid consideration, and yeah, to your point, there are some software programs where, it may lead to which one we choose, where we can limit or protect against multiple submissions.
Didn't the, American tourism one have that? I thought they did.
They may have, I mean, and again, there's several different platforms that we can use, that we can look at, but, what I hear is, yes, I agree that protecting against multiple submissions would be something we would want.
So on the community services, and there's blanks in front of like maintaining over so many acres, you want them to guess the acre again?
No, your worship, we'll fill those blanks in, we'll make sure before it goes live, it's just, we didn't have.
Yeah, we're not
time
asking
to
them.
Get all that stuff.
Well, whoosh, because I know that was gonna hit the fan, and they.
And you would say like, no one knows anything that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, possible.
Well, that's good,
Winner
actually.
gets his taxes paid.
Huh?
Winner gets his taxes paid.
You have a good
It
story.
won't be a prize for someone who guesses it right, but yeah, we'll make sure they're filled.
Oh, that's good, I like it.
Okay, Council Pepper?
Thank you. Is there any, go linking back to earlier discussion, I know it's kind of different, maybe intended purpose for it, but is there any way to link this through Moyen? More traffic through there or something that's on that, but I don't know if we can do that, if that's skewing the intended purpose of it.
Yeah, it's a good point. We can consider or find a way to maybe put a link or something to that.
Should be able to put the link in there and they can just click the link.
For the ones who registered.
Yeah.
And like feeding a couple more people in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be useful, maybe I'll do. You want, And we're paying for it, find a way to get it used.
Yeah, and maybe ask them if they heard the boy. And they might get some more people say, what the hell was that? Join it. Okay, anything else on the budget survey? All right. Move to 5C, the modifications of the 5-year financial outlook, differential tax rates.
Right, your worship, so a little preamble, I know Councilor Von Richter is gonna table that for us and I'll say it's a good way to bring the request for decisions. Full circle, so we use them for staff, but they are indeed meant for council to be able to table information for discussion. Councilor Don Richter approached me and I have no issue with bringing it to the table for discussion, so I'll turn it over to him and let him defend his thesis.
Your worship, all in favor? Because we started real quick. First of all, thank you, council, for indulging me in my, this has been on my mind, well, for about 18 months, I guess, 19 months. So, I just want to say that the format, the whole first page, I want to soften the impact of some of that language. It's, this is simply a statement of fact. I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody. The one thing that did irk me at the time was that with the election of the new councilors, the budget was already held for the first year before the councilors were in place. So with the government's premise that the entire exercise was based on re-enfranchising people that had no vote and taking down the number of entities from 400 to 96 or whatever, I thought it was a mistake by the provincial government to not allow the councilors to be in place before the vote took place. Thought that was an unfair burden to put on the transition committee. And that's simply why I stated it there. And then just being new to this format, it's all stuff you know, but you have to put in there, so regular session on Sunday, November 22, first hearing case was done, 21 September 23, the 5-year plan was adopted. And if I recall at the time, I said that at the time, I agree with the 5-year plan, I agree with the budget, I just didn't agree with how we arrived at the final number in terms of the differential tax rates. The table at the top of page 2 is simply the reiteration of the exact table. So cut to the chase. It's my belief and contention that the proposed tax rates are an unfair tax rate on the burden of the residents of Lincoln Four. Terms that if this 5-year plan stays in place, we'll see a 6.4 increase in the tax rate for residents in Ward 1 and 3, and a 22.5% increase in residents for Lincoln. Our tax rate will raise 3.5 times faster than the other ward. Part of the problem is, and not part of the problem, I agree with how we do budgets, I agree how the budgets have been done. The list your taxes, list your services. What's it gonna cost you? We got increased services, you want decreased services, fund the services. We've done that. First 2 budgets I've been involved with, I agree with the process. You've heard me use the statement before that Lincoln came in paying all its bills, when we came in this arranged marriage, for lack of a better term. We came in with like a $60,000 surplus in year 1, last year at the LSD. I think it'd been that way for a couple of years at the LSD. So basically, the LSD was paying its bills, we came in paying our bills. Rest of town, area of services, pays the bills. So I think that we're on the same footing. Since we've joined the town, and I need to soften this language, we have seen 0 additional services provided at Lincoln. We don't want any additional service. The statement of fact. So we came in paying our bills. I believe we're still paying our bills. I don't think we need to increase that gap or decrease that gap between our tax rate and the rest of the town's tax rate. Put it in a simple point. When we talk about, another thing that I think that maybe has impacted this is, we talked about assessments then, we talked about assessments tonight a little bit. I don't think this model takes into account the impact of the spike protection that's going on. And I put information based on my own personal data. You know, the assessment's gone up, you know. Look at actual numbers. Previous 12 years went up 21%, average of 1.8% a year. The last 3 years has gone up 48.8%, an average of 16%. Spike protection doesn't really offer any relief or protection from those increases, it just punts the problem down the road. Because if someone's had a $60,000 impact with spike protection, that's on your tax bill. You think, oh, that's great for this year, but if that amount goes on your bill, the first year the total tax is under 10%, you start paying that back. So I truly believe that in my case, I could see a 10% increase in my actual taxes paid every year for the next 5 years, just based on assessment creep. Just a thought. I mean, time will tell, because I've had the benefit of the last 2 years of spike protection. Significant amount last year, the rest of it. If our taxes are gonna hit 6-7% range, it only allows 3% to go to spike protection again, to bring that back. So I think the spike protection is gonna be there. I think my taxes are gonna go up 10% for the next 5 years, actual taxes paid. I don't think this model takes that into account. Because, and I know assessments are not ours. But I don't think we took that into account. With regards to dollar range, one of the things that I didn't want to do is assume that, put a number on staff and count and the CAO. I think the gap can stay where it is between Lincoln and Oromocto. So all I'm asking is that going forward, that we all go up the same amount or go down the same amount every year in the tax rate, so that 2025 is 2 cents on the dollar. That Ward 1 goes up, Ward 1, 2, and 3 go up 2 cents, and Ward 4 goes up 2 cents. Ward 4 goes down, we all go down 2 cents. The other issue when we talk about dollars and cents is when I first started looking at this last year, I think at the time it was 4 cents in Lincoln, 1.5 cents in Oromocto. I think if you change that to 2 cents in both spots, it raises the same amount of money. So it's a big change for folks in Lincoln, but not that much of a change for folks in Oromocto, as far as the impact. With regards to when we looked at this problem last year, we talked about, you know, was Lincoln paying its fair share with regards to environmental services, public works, public safety, recreation and culture, governance, planning and development. And I had some correspondence, I think John sent it to all of us with regards to talking to consumers about tax raises. And it was, in that document, it said that basically it was thought that Lincoln was paying its fair share in the blocks 1, 2, and 3, was falling a bit short of recreation and culture and on the governance side. In 2022, 146,000 rough numbers of Lincoln budget was allocated to categories 4 and 5. In 2023, that was increased by another $100,000 to an increase of almost 68%. So we started to pay our deficit of those 2 pillars, if you will. When I looked at overall town finances, I think the town's in very good financial shape. We have had accumulated surpluses. Now, I know the surpluses is not money in the bank specifically, but it is a reflection of the financial planning in the town and the financial strength of the town. It also talks about asset management quite a bit too. But I think in overall, in the financial picture, I think Oromocto was in very good shape. And I don't think making this change would have put an undue burden on our town's financial outlook. So.
Questions or comments, council?
Thank you. I think that Councillor Bonner did bring some good points to the table. A couple of times I'm just listening and I'm thinking the reference to Oromocto Lincoln. Oromocto Lincoln. I know you're just doing it as a presentation for the numbers, but for me, I've always said it's Oromocto. We are 4 wards within the town of Oromocto. We operate a budget for the whole town of Oromocto. And 2 years ago, almost, more now, when we looked at our financial situation, ours as the town of Oromocto, and looking down the road, those were the numbers presented that we would need to have to continue offering the services and everything that we have to all our citizens, not Ward 1, 2, 3. And like, it's 4 wards within the town of Oromocto, which happens to encompass the ward of Lincoln. So, right away, when I look at the tax, I wrote, when we were saying that, we're going to go to a 2-tier tax schedule, and I don't think that that's right either. I think it needs to be, get to the point where we figure that it needs to get to, and then be equal. But I understand where you're coming from here, Councilor Volunteer. It's just that for the things that we plan to do to grow the whole town, then that's the financial package that was put together to get us. If we deviate from that, then we're going to have to change everything that we forecast for down the road. It's basically what it means. I can sympathize because I have family that lives in Lincoln. But I think as town of Oromocto, we just need to move forward with what we've set. And knowing that it's going to be hard for a while, but eventually it'll all get on the same playing field.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Have you still have?
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Councilor Craig. Can I just have, John, you talk about the memo that you have on your desk?
Yeah, sure, your worship, so. I did a bit of a memo on a rebuttal, and again, a lot of it is, obviously with respect and all, because I obviously respect the position that the councilors come from. A lot of what's in there is things you've heard in previous presentations to try to explain what was considered the gap, and to me, we're being thrust in a position where unfortunately the province didn't do tax reform for many decades, and so it led to what a lot of people argue is this inequality of gap for services. So there's no doubt that there has not been an increased level of service, but the gap was never meant to address that. The gap was really meant, in all fairness, to try to close what was considered the subsidy that LSCs received through the provincial government for services that they were getting at pennies on the dollar. So the gap that it's trying to close was never about increased level of service. It will be once we get there. If we all go up, then you should see an increased level of service. But until we could close that gap, it was really meant to reduce the amount that was seen as a subsidy, if you will, through the operation of the province. And we try to make sure in those that we were clear in the presentation where the big pots, the big gaps were in recreation and administration, because those things, by virtue of the province being Costco and us being the 5 and dime with the buying power they could give to the other 300 LSDs out there with one manager, when, everybody who's in this room that sits, not sitting at this table, is being paid a salary which far exceeded the amount, for example, in administration that the old Lincoln Local Service District was having to pay. And so those are the gaps that we were attempting to close. And again, we were trying to close them under rules provided by the province, like, oh, you can't do more than 5 cents a year, you can't, so there's a thing, which all makes sense, because again, you don't want to create shock to comply. So that was part of what was put into the memo for consideration, because again, it is council's decision. I can react, staff can react to whatever that decision is. But at the end of the day, we're halfway through where we think that gap is. So we have applied 7.5 cents in the 2 years, and we're halfway through the projected gap. If we did go and say, okay, let's say everybody moves up or down, and we just do the 7.5. The last point in there was that by 2029, we would be about $656,000 more in a deficit than we would be if we maintain the course and close the gap. I will say to Councillor Von Richter's point about, yes, could you say, okay, instead of doing 1.5 and 4, we could do 2 and 2, and the difference is about $16,000. So I can recoup the difference by putting the town rate up 2 cents and Lincoln rate up the same 2 cents and recoup that same difference, because you've got to consider that for every cent in the town proper, I gain $146,000. For every cent in Lincoln, I gain about 30,000. So yes, 1/2 cent in addition to the town's rate versus a 2 cent draw on the Lincoln rate, I can recover the same amount of money that staff's looking that we would need to operate as we move forward. So that is an option. It's just, if it's about closing the perceived gap in what they felt initially was out there, then, that's a different story. And the only other thing I will say is I do hope that after this election that we can get our provincial government motivated and back on dealing with the financial reform that was supposed to go along with this regional reform that just all of a sudden stopped. Because maybe that might help share some of the burden, which is closing these gaps as well. But until such time, we have to deal with what we feel was the gap. And so that's outlined in that memo again for council's consideration tonight.
Councilor Cox. Thank you, thank you, Councilor Von Richard, for doing it up, and thank you, John, for doing the response. That's helpful. Thank you. Perspective. I'll jump on Councilor Dawes' bandwagon for all 1, 2, and 2 sounds good. But it is quite for on a third of the population, a quarter of the population. The amount of increases plus the uncontrollable coming from the province has been very, like you said, I can see another 10 years of increases in the province's tax rate on my house. Plus we're taking this hit, and if I could see an increase in services, and I know, like you've said, I'm saying that, but it wasn't about increase, it was closing day out, that term that you keep using. But your residents don't see that. And even if I saw a plan to do something in the ward, we're all one, we're all gonna pay for a new recreation wellness community facility, whatever the title is on it now. But that's not anywhere near us. That's where it was always going to be before we came. We don't have a park. We don't have anything. No. So it's a hard sell. You go out to the public and try to tell them what the town is doing for them. Closing them down. They don't. We paid our bills. I paid bills. We always did. I understand your bills are higher, so now our bill has to go higher. But in the everybody is one, 2 and 2 would get us the same dollar amount, and be a much less burden on the quarter of the population. I feel like if we broke it down into every ward, pays your fair share, or Bucket West would be paying probably less based on the population and the tax assessments, and then maybe this other ward would get hit more. I don't know. I don't know how it all works out. You can shake your head all you want over there, but I'm sure every ward would come in at a different rate. If that's what we want to do, great, but if we're gonna do all of 1, the 2 and 2 does ease the burden on the ward. was a very small increase on the rest of the wards, and I know if I'm a resident of any of the other wards, I get. Put yourself, put our shoes, we've been paying a lot, and we're gonna keep paying a lot. And we're not getting anything tangible. We're getting great service. All the employees here are great. All the presentations here are fantastic. I'm not arguing against that. I think you're worth every dollar, probably more. Not saying anything about the employees, but we're not getting anything.
Should lend with that.
Yeah, we're not getting anything in return. If I'm the person down the road, I'm on somewhat inner circle here, I can understand it. 99% of the people in our ward cannot see. And even, you can explain this to them all they want, but they still don't have a park, they still don't have a ring. And I know they don't get it, but they don't have sidewalks, they don't have roads, they, no fire hall coming, there's no. They're not seeing why all of our dollars go into the old town, but none of the dollars have been increased ever coming up. And they want to see those tangibles, and I understand, there's no property owned by the town, I understand that, but it would definitely be a help. In this growing process. To, if there was an alternate solution, I would fully support that. So I think what the vision is right now for what we have on the plate that wanting to build, right, expand and update, and they all need to be done, and they're all great, it'll help grow the community, but that community as a whole. I can move forward that way. That's all.
That's where the problem, but if I cry, even when they told you had to pick between Bridgeton and Oromocto. And you opted for Oromocto, but they didn't explain none of that to you. They didn't explain it to us.
Yeah, we have to be left with an LSD action.
I don't know. You said you got surpluses.
Or Moncton had surplus. Oh,
Yeah.
Lincoln had surplus.
Yeah, so what happens to that surplus then?
You got it.
You never done.
No,
You didn't get it.
no, we didn't.
Okay, well, we're
Because
still,
I said,
well, man, we're still paying our bills.
because if you had.
We did,
It was, I think it was a $40,000, $60,000 surplus.
Well, if that was the case, then we wouldn't have to raise your tax. If we do that, we get the 40,000. We're not getting. So next time, just fluff up the figures a little bit. and take that.
You're getting it.
I think that ship sailed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about.
I'm looking at, Councilor Von Richter. Councilor Von Richter's presentation, and that's included, where we say split it 2 and 2. Our increase would be 1.5, oh, let's go 25, 1.5 years. That's 5%. You're splitting that. That's going to be another cent on ours and a drop on yours to 3. So
Yeah, it goes-
2.5. Right? That's what you're suggesting.
Oh, I just said that when we look at the numbers, I mean, 4 and 1.5, 2 and 2 ends up being roughly the same amount of revenue.
And from
I'm not recommending any rates.
No, saying from revenue wise, that's correct. I want to go back to, when we were doing the amalgamations. One of the things that we heard, as councils within the town at the time, now, is that no problem having Lincoln when we talked about having to join, but they were already paying, they as the residents were paying their share with the increase, and they weren't willing to do this amalgamation if they were gonna have to pay more. So we were in the same boat as what it seems like you're in now, but regardless of whether it's the left side or the right side, it's the whole pot, which, not wanting to keep saying this, but neither one of us had any solution to get to. It was thrust upon us, plus paying out, as John says, $245,000 to the next level that none of us had to pay. And somewhere in this whole pot, we have to come to an agreement of, as you say, which is fair. That at the time when we looked at that long range fund is what we thought was a fair price presentation to put down as far as percentages. If we can break it down so that it's less of a burden and not a great burden, right hand side, left hand side, that I'm in favor, but I don't see how it is, because we are getting increased in wards 1 to 3 as well, just not at the same rate. But we're already at a higher rate than
Again, not talking about the rates, I'm just talking about the inequity of the amount of the tax increase on the taxpayer. So 22.5 versus 6.5, I mean, that's an increase.
I'm looking at 2468 on the sheet that you did.
It's 22%,
On the cap rate.
22% increase
Two different
in
things.
tax.
Oh, okay.
Impact on my tax.
6.4.
Anyone, I should say that this is not about my taxes. I use my numbers
I know.
as an example. This is just about
In general.
people in the ward. Cause you know, there is an option. Let's have differential tax rates for each ward. Not one I would want, not one I would recommend, not one we should have, but we currently have a tax rate for one ward and a tax rate for the other three. So one could argue we should go and have 4 tax rates. Or one. No,
Yeah, I think that's.
No, it's a complicated mess.
Until we get to 2027. Then it becomes. the whole.
But it is something
But
that
it's
we're in
getting-
control. That's the thing, and we've got all the beacons.
I don't wanna waste any more time for anybody. I mean,
That's all food for thought, and now we have.
Well, let me finish what I was saying, if that's okay.
Okay.
Although we have complete control of this, although we know how it played out and what would happen and how we're gonna bring these together. We are also in control of trying to make it work for our town as a whole. And yeah, maybe sometimes some of the things we do might have to be as black and white as numbers and percentages and what we have to do. But there's also some things we can do that makes big picture look better for you. And as much as we didn't get field this card, and as much as nobody seemed to want it, although I think it's actually gonna be a good thing for the long run. We are in control of how we deal. Always, at this point now that we've been in this and we've got our year in and we've got our time in, we actually are in control and check with these numbers. The only thing that takes out of our hands per se, to a certain extent, is budgeted numbers, but it has to be paid, bills, I get that. But there are some things that we can change things around a little bit to maybe do something a little bit different because we can. Not because whether or not we, that old saying, just because we can doesn't mean you should. So I'm just saying, as much as we can, we keep dying on the sword of what happened to us and this happened, I think we have to let that go because it's done. And worrying about what should have been could have is irrelevant. But we are now sitting in these seats for a year and so as a team. And, when we proposed this, it was the logical way for our administration to do this, to make sense. But we're now sitting with a team with a bunch of different things that have come into play. None of us can deny the fact that Lincoln says, and I don't know about you, but and I know the talking about taxes to any residents comes down to which road got paid that year. They do not see the administration percentage different. They don't. You don't. And to Ryan's point, you guys all know when you probably carried a big job for something that you weren't set in for. But the long and the short is, one of the things I noticed the most about this council, you guys, when you first got in, was that there was a physical difference in what was being done in this town than when I was in and prior to that. Monies came in, no one knew who it went, everyone just thought it was, we didn't see anything and you whined and complained. But one of the things when you guys were in council the first time, within the 4 years, there was a physical difference in, even if it's a pavement, even in a road, even as something physical, you could feel it. And to the point where I remember talking to people that I felt like our money's going somewhere because I could see it. And it might not have been something simple, but it was there. And one of the things before I got to join this was one of the things I talked about this council. That I felt like our money is being spent to where we can benefit. Now, who knows what it was doing before, but it was obvious. This part of with Lincoln, there is an obvious, nothing physical there. And it's tough to do, and I know there's a big picture, but you can't debate that. There's a physical, unobvious correlation of what they're getting out of this, really. And we can sit here in our circle with knowledge, like we do with tax time when people ask us for the rate and we try to explain to them what we've gone through and how we budget in every line and we don't do fluff, we don't do crap. Doesn't matter. unless they see that they're parked on a swing set, they don't care. Well, Lincoln's not seeing anything physically, and that's a psychological difference. Now, whether or not that, and the only thing you can do is do it on the taxing, I don't know. But that is a problem that we might have to look at. And whether it's keep the taxes and do something of value, I don't know. But that is a legitimate point. We gotta look at as a team. Pass the crap that why we were here and move forward.
What's that? Wanting me, the RC 11 too, because we pay by population.
Yeah,
So when the tax bill comes in, it comes to the town of Oromocto and we pay that. But we pay by population, so that's something that Lincoln is paying, that they don't know.
that's right.
See,
But again, it's not a
could be
tangible.
explained, but No.
So, for example, this is such a small thing, but when we went to the town and I wanted people to put a tree in the yard. Did we do Lincoln too?
See a flower, see a garden, see a
You
tree.
know what I mean? It's just living stuff. But, you know, we all got, as a resident, we all got an opportunity to have a tree put in our yard thanks to town. I wanted one.
Right, this year.
I was gonna guess. Yeah, but they,
No, it's not.
well, you were allowed to though. You could, Jilly. Too bad, 'cause she got it. But you could. Oh, we all got it in a mailbox. I remember. I thought, what
How long
ago? This year.
It was based on urban forest management. And
Exactly.
so if you got one in your mailbox, it was the next phase of the trees that were left over.
Yeah.
So it's just for.
So, it's just a small, it's great little thing, but I guess what I'm saying. Nobody in Lincoln now, like, we just get tons of trees, maybe the one, but that's just a small event. And I think that's where we gotta, you know, and Lorraine headed this conversation on wonderful, thinking that we're all a whole and we gotta stop. But until they feel that there's something tangible. And, you know, and maybe the taxes are all intangible, we got, I don't know. But I think as a whole, we do have the opportunity to do something if we don't. Or change something, or stick with it, that's a key thing, but. It's in our court now, so I'm saying.
Okay, we'll move on now to the local service easement, Dallas.
Well, thank your worship, just so we get the point over, we do need a direction here. So, I mean, right now, what's on the table is our current financial plan. So if there is a motive to change that, then staff needs to know tonight so that we can prepare our budgets accordingly. So that's why it's on the table tonight, because we do need to get to some decision as to a consensus on, are we staying the course, or do you want staff to consider a change?
Man.
I'm not gonna, believe it or not, I'm gonna make this very brief. I agree with pretty much everything everyone has said, tackling this issue from a variety of perspectives. I do think that this is a plan that was set in motion initially of no one's choosing in this room. We though did make decisions a while ago on these, and I think we need to let this plan effectuate itself. But I think just for the sake of making this an easy decision, I would suggest going around the room and say stay the course or vote to change. Because I know where I sit.
But before we do that, in all due fairness, we've got a process where we go and look at the budget, we look at the things, and then we decide what we know it's gonna be.
Yeah, and
Would
what
we
I'm
do that
suggesting, Counselor, is absolutely that's gonna be a natural process that we will do in the budgeting cycle. I'm talking specifically on the taxation numbers.
What, isn't that what we will effectively change after budget, the taxation number? Isn't that one round the process of budgeting?
Yes.
I guess I'm wondering why they
Yeah,
have to
point,
decide now and we still have a whole bunch of information.
Right, so what we've done in the last year is we've changed the orders because for us to go through a budget cycle and get staff to level or balance their budgets on something that may or may not stick is difficult. So hence the financial plan laid out the next 5 years of the rates that we would task staff to live within. And so what we do know is if we stick to the current plan, the mill rate or what was known as Oromocto would go up 1.5 cents, and the one for the Lincoln Ward would go up 4. That's what staff will be directed based on that, what that overall pot. If that is not what council's wish is, then we will make the appropriate change and then let staff know, okay, our pot is now of slightly less. Or
But why is it less if you're changing the taxation of either or? I think Gary made a point that if you're splitting it up to this to have more hypothetically, and this to have less, why is the pot, if you not work the pot number and maneuver the taxes to equalize what you all thought the pot was gonna be?
we can certainly do that, yes. But tonight it was simply a matter of saying, are we gonna stay the course, or do you want staff to come back and say, okay, do you want everyone to go up 2 cents?
Well, no, I,
Because at the end of the day, if I need $30 million to operate.
We wanna
whether
make
I
sure
get
they have it.
1.5 or 2 and 2.
Yeah.
John Jackson does not care.
exactly, that's what, I guess that's my point, as long as you have a 30 million, yeah.
They just need to know what 30 million, and so.
So technically, as long as it's 30 million, where how the tax is being divided is not necessarily relevant for you guys to keep moving on and doing that.
I mean, it is in the sense of it tells us what that pod is.
Well, no, but you have a goal, I know you're using 30 million, so now you got a goal of 30 million, as long as 30 million, that number doesn't change.
Correct. So, but right now, if we said, okay, we're gonna achieve that 30 million by virtue of 1.5 and 4. That's what we're targeting right now. And so if it's a vote to change that, but make sure we keep the, the same level of service, then staff, it's just mathematics, right? It's as you say, so we can do 2 and 2 and pretty much come to the same number for close. So, but tonight it's about, because our direction under our 5-year financial plan is to go up 1.5 and 4. So if that's not the direction that the consensus of council wants us to take, then we just want to move on.
Okay. And to vote. Yays?
What are we saying?
But staying on this,
I would say stay the course. It's clear.
Okay, stay the course.
Stay the course.
Stay the course, stay the course.
change.
Change.
Vote to stay the course.
Thanks for your time.
Okay. Now we'll get to Dallas, the local service evenings.
Thank you, worship. Making the move with the two little local service here. Look, there'll be a little bit of information in your package, really brief. Essentially, there were 2 recent land sales that we did. One was the addition of lands to enhance living. And the other would be a portion on Terry Fox Drive. In those cases, we talked about how it would be on the vendor, which is the town, to prepare the subdivision plans. And of course, preparing those plans, we do things like we identify areas that we might need to access, maintain infrastructure, and make it easements. For those easements to vest with the rights in the town, that they need to have a sent to council. So there's 2 plans that I've referenced in this document for resolution to give assent to. They simply refer to the plans, and by that, the clerk's going to decide if they have council assent, and then those plans are registered, the rights and the easements will vest. So the big pieces of these matters have already been discussed at the time that we considered this land sale and the subdivision, so it's really just kind of homework for them. Is there any questions? I'll answer them, and then,
Question, council?
thank you, your worship.
Okay. So on that note, I'll call for a mover for an adjournment. Deputy Mayor, Remy, seconder, Henry, second, all in favor? Chair, motion carried. Take a 3-minute recess, go on the 12. I've been on. 3 minutes? Okay.
You can find a point, 3 minutes.
I just read on the news.
Oh,
snack.
That's not either.
Coming to run for mayor in a couple of years, what? I can get better earlier.
Oh, can't afford to buy one. Can't afford to buy one.
You know, the whole thing is. What is it?
Oh, yeah.
Folks together.
Oh, it's all the problems. 100% is the problem. That's why the assessments are going through the roof. They know in 2 years, they've held an opportunity. They're gonna stall now for the election. So it's been 2 years.
And then,
Then they're gonna say, well, now we got a share, we got a bigger pot to share. Okay, we'll give you 2% or 3%. So there's no chance anyone's assessments are gonna go down.
never ever asked.
No, the current value of it.
We look for an income work.
Then he was gonna drive.
HST, orange portion, $450 million.
Yeah, put in a little.
What gets me about government is, why does the government have to wait to get reelected to get the program?
Oh, okay.
Do it now.
That's the whole.
You're
thing.
Reelected if you did.
Don't do that. Don't promise your votes, buy your votes.
That's right.
Like, no, but do it now.
It's like a threat. Like, you know, the other party's just going, well, it's that good.
Use the idea.
I don't know. I never followed politics before like I do now.
Well, I'm saying
Don't
that.
follow politics.
You got Yes. That's how they're running their election campaigns now, they're turfing the other guys. And everyone's believing what they're saying, and say, oh my God, and then the other guys are turfing it back.
I thought. It should do like 2 months ago.
But here's another thing, all this wonderful change, I'm back in Fredericton now.
Yeah. Yeah, so am I. I'm not even part of it.
There you go.
I'm part of it.
We're up Bernie Berry.
Yeah, I'm not, we don't even know.
Never voted, never
We vote for. Because the airport's the cutoff one, so Stan and the little bunch of houses there, Richmond Estates, votes on it.
Never voted in the Fredericton, all.
We got David.
They changed the boundary.
We got David too. I mean, he'll likely get. He's the great.
That's one of the reasons they wanted to do that, they want to get him another riding that guy, because he was tall, so they stretch it out.
Back in 2010,
And it got some liberal. There's a lot more liberal voting bloc. The closer you get to Frederick. Oromocto is typically very blue, so Mary's got an even more blue riding. I mean, it wasn't that, it's elections, brother, it's not a political manipulation, I'm not gonna suggest it, but it worked out very well. Because it acts a whole lot of liberal votes out of her riding too.
It all takes, because now here, it was all. Oh.
Well, look at Federal. West St. John is now not with the West St. John. It's with McAdam and St. Andrews and St. George.
Really?
Yeah, so the west side,
Which they have nothing in common with.
you cross the,
Stephen or St.
you cross the bridge, once you cross the bridge, you're in different federal riding.
They go on. They want. Not a vote. And that's all crap, it's all put in place, and they know exactly where they put the marker. See, I got one more minute, I said, yeah.
So I was pleasantly surprised by our phone.